All right. I don't even care what my hair looks like. Oh, never mind. Hold on. I saw this video. You want high LDL cholesterol. Your MD needs to see this. And I have an upcoming doctor's appointment this next Monday. And as someone whose total cholesterol went up to 508 on a carnivore diet, my doctor is continuously telling me that I'm going to die and that I need to be around for my 8 kids. So I better take the statin. So anything that has to do with this, I'm interested. It is by, let's see here, Dr. Anthony J, which I do not know who that is. All right, let's get into it.
All right, let's talk about cholesterol, my favorite topic. This topic is so perverted in scientific circles, especially medical circles. It's really frustrating. By the way, I did a 5-year PhD on the topic of cholesterol and sex hormones. So I'm very qualified to talk about.
Okay, well, I was going to say, who is this guy? And what does he know? Does he know anything? So he says he knows stuff. We'll go from there.
About this. And the main study that I want to show you and I want to focus on is a study with 12.8 million people, because you can't argue with that study size, right? You can't say, well, it's kind of a small study. 12.8 million people. And the study is called Total Cholesterol and All-Cause Mortality. Total cholesterol. It's not the best metric, right? You can do
I don't know anything about this study, nor would I know how to read it. I think what doctors usually do is just go down to the conclusion or the summary of it.
LDL versus HDL ratios. You can look at particle size, all that. But let's just look at total cholesterol, because most of the doctors look at total cholesterol. And by the way, all-cause mortality means death by any cause. It means you're dying of heart attacks, dying of strokes, dying of literally anything, lung failure, whatever. So they're looking at what's your cholesterol, how do you die? And all I want to look at is figure 2 here. And you'll see there's a graph that says men and women, hazard ratio, and total cholesterol. Hazard ratio, by the way, means hazard of dying. So you don't want a high hazard ratio. Now, earlier this week, I had a client from Greece, the country of Greece, and he's a vegan. And he had some blood work he sent me. His total cholesterol is 110. That's very common with vegans and vegetarians. Their total cholesterol is 110, 120. And the doctor will come into the office. He'll give you a high five. And he'll say, you are the model of good health. I'm so proud of you. Yes, you have no testosterone. Yes, you have no sex drive. Yes, you have depression. Yes, you have no energy. Yes, you have brain fog. But you're the...
Hold on. Like, I mean, you have no wife. Essentially, that's what it seems like. It's like neutered or castrated, or like an eunuch, a eunuch. Yeah, that does not sound healthy to me. Doesn't seem, it's no bueno.
Model of good health. And he'll say, yeah, but I have depression, I have brain fog, and I have low testosterone, and I have no sex drive. And they'll say, yeah, but at least your blood test looks really good.
Sorry. I'm having a hard time with that. Oh, okay, yeah. Roasted. It's like the opposite of what happened to me on the carnivore diet. Okay.
That's what we're dealing with in our modern medical system. They think the lower the better in terms of cholesterol. There's plenty of people out there that will say that. It's complete nonsense. First of all, a big reason for that is a large portion of your brain is made of cholesterol. Secondly, your sex hormones are made from cholesterol. Testosterone, estrogen, progesterone, they're made from cholesterol. If you want low testosterone, give yourself low cholesterol. How do you do that? Eat super low fat. You'll feel like garbage after a couple.
I mean, I guess that's an option for me. You know, I already have 8 kids. Not sure I need any more kids. So I guess if I want to become a nun, because I don't want none, ain't getting none, I can go vegan. The jokes write themselves around here.
Couple of years. Sometimes it takes a couple of years. You've got a lot of cholesterol stored up in your brain and stored up in your cells. you have quite a good reserve of it, but eventually you deplete that reserve. So let's talk about me. My total cholesterol is usually about 240, maybe even 260 sometimes. And again, I did my PhD on this topic. That doesn't scare me in the least. I think that's phenomenal. I think that
Before he gets into that, I'm looking at this scale and he's like 240, 260. So it's like the lower it gets, the hazard ratio goes up. But then after what, 260, 250, 240, it starts going back up again. And if I follow this trend, for mine, that was 508 last time. It's actually last time I think it went down to like 460 something, but it's obviously higher, and potentially if the hazard ratio is higher than let's say, let me look at this. Let's say it was 450 and I follow that out. So I have the same hazard ratio as someone that's probably about 140 cholesterol, potentially. Okay, what does he say? I'm going to stop interrupting him. I can't even say words, but I'll probably not stop interrupting.
that's amazing. But what happens when I go to the doctors, the conventional doctors in America, happens all the time. They come into the office, they'll be all sweaty, and they'll say, "I'm sorry to inform you, you're going to die any minute of a heart attack unless we get you on some drugs, some statins." Right? That's what they do. I'm not kidding. Your total cholesterol is 240. You're going to die. That's very scary for people, especially if you've never studied this. You just assume the doctor knows best. You assume they've studied it. You assume they took more than one class on this in medical school. But they really haven't taken much more than like a week of classes on the topic of cholesterol, obviously. So the optimal range, I mean, look at the actual data. The optimal range is between 180 and 280. And if you're in that range, I'm as happy as could be. Your hormones will be amazing. Hopefully, unless you have some other issue like heavy metals or whatever. There's obviously other potential issues. There's nuance here, but the optimal range for your cholesterol, at least 180 and 280. Now, by the way, if you get above 300, you'll see that that hazard ratio does start to go back up. So there are more risks as you get up 300, 400, 500. Some of my clients are 500 on their total cholesterol. I don't like that at all. I'm very concerned about that. Let's bring that down. Sometimes you can even use veganism as a tool, as like a lever to pull to get that down if you need to. There's other ways to do it, by the way. You don't have to do that. But if you start getting above 300 on your total cholesterol, that's when you start looking.
I mean, before he goes on, what would you do what would you do if you were in my position of having an over 450, let's say, cholesterol total? I have a really good HDL to triglyceride ratio, but it was like 1.2, I believe. But what would you do? Would you be concerned? Would you try veganism? Because I don't think I want to try veganism just to lower my LDL cholesterol. Could I add a sweet potato a week and it do the same? Even though I don't like sweet potato. I mean, is there options there? I know some people will swear by berberine. I've never taken it. But I know my body makes this cholesterol unless I'm a hyper absorber. I'm pretty sure I'm a hyper responder, but maybe I'm a hyper absorber and it sucks in, because someone told me that once, and it's confusing. I don't have a 5-year PhD in cholesterol. I have a 2-year degree in trying to figure out what the heck I'm supposed to do to stick around for my wife and my kids. And my doctor literally thinks I'm going to die. And it's like, I got to put a CYA in his file. So he's like, well, I don't want you to sue me. I'm like, I'm not going to sue you. I honestly think I know more about it than he does. But still, this guy's saying goes up after 300, like we're talking about. It has to spark some kind of thought process in me. Let me know what you think.
at particle size and LDL versus HDL ratio and all of the nuance there. That's when it matters. As long as you're below 300, I don't even care about that stuff.
I should have just stopped talking. Let him. I'm going to bring that back because I think he kind of answered the question. Like, there's things to do after that besides veganism.
Size and LDL versus HDL ratio and all of the nuance there. That's when it matters. If you get above 300, you'll see that hazard ratio does start to go back up. So there are more risks as you get up 300, 400, 500. Some of my clients are 500 on their total cholesterol. I don't like that at all. I'm very concerned about that. Let's bring that down. Sometimes you can even use veganism as a tool, as like a lever to pull to get that down if you need to. There's other ways to do it, by the way. You don't have to do that. But if you start getting above 300 on your total cholesterol, that's when you start looking at particle size and LDL versus HDL ratio and all of the nuance there. That's when it matters. As long as you're below 300, I don't even care about that stuff. Let's ignore it unless you're legitimately high. If you're legitimately high, let's pay attention to it. And again, this is all framed based on your genetics also. So some other genes like LPA might be a factor. We might look at some specific things. We might look at homocysteine. There are genes that can influence your heart disease that are totally outside of cholesterol. In fact, most of your heart disease gene risks have nothing to do with cholesterol. It's all about inflammation. At the end of the day, if you've got plaque in your arteries, it's from inflammation. You can measure plaque in your arteries with a CT scan, by the way. But, and by the way, I have zero plaque in my arteries. So it's absurd to assume that I'm going to die any minute of a heart attack when my cholesterol is high, supposedly high. And I don't even think it's high, by the way. If I go in and get 260, they're telling me it's high. I'm saying, no, that's not high. If you're coming in at 260 and you're saying, hey, I've got high cholesterol, I'm saying, no, you don't. You've got amazing cholesterol. I love you just the way you are.
I studied PhD for 5 years on this. It's not high. It's not high. He said inflammation. And I did a CAC score, CAC score, calcium artery calcification score, I believe. And it came back 122. I was hoping it was 0. It wasn't. But at the same time, I've been on the carnivore diet for just over 2 years. And before that, there was many years of my life that I was drinking heavily, and I smoked cigarettes for 12 years, and I was smoking the devil's lettuce, and I was living on the streets and eating whatever I could and just existing and living. And the inflammation, I had inflammation in my body. And now being on a all meat diet, I know my inflammation is lower. I mean, my doctor had me tested for it because he's like, oh, you might have high inflammation because all this. And he brought it back. It was like perfect. So yeah, shove it.
So you get the idea. This cholesterol thing has been perverted, the whole topic. It's been used as a bludgeon to make more money for these drug companies that are selling statins to almost everybody, because almost everybody is above 200 on their cholesterol. And so if you put a little red flag on the blood test when people get above 200, and which is what they do, and there's a ton of influence by the drug companies to get that happening and make that happen, obviously you're going to get a ton of money from statins. You're going to get everybody going on statins. And this is really frustrating because in scientific research, there's a ton of studies that say, oh, this supplement's really good for you because it lowers your cholesterol. And this food, like meat, is really bad for you because it raises your cholesterol. And this is good because it lowers. This is bad because it raises. On and on and on. And the only reason they're saying that is because of some nonsense historical stuff from Ansel Keys. And if you want to read all into that, there's plenty of good information. Nina Teicholz would be a good authority on that. For example, when I gave a talk for the Special Forces, she was also one of the speakers at a summit that we were speaking at, like a private summit for the U.S. Special Forces. So, there's good information. I don't want to launch into the whole issue and history of cholesterol. Dr. Joseph Mercola did a good little piece on it in his book, Fat for Fuel. The first chapter, first few pages, honestly, is an amazing summary of the history of cholesterol. Also, if you want just a really short little summary of that, you can probably even read those first few pages on Amazon for free if you just look through the book. So, your cholesterol's fine, most likely. Might not be, might be way too high, but at least now you know what that means. What is too high? What's optimal? What's too low? I'm more worried if you're too low than if you're too high, supposedly, according to the modern system. Don't be fooled. A lot of it is just smoke and mirrors to sell things. That's usually what you find when there's a lot of money behind the scenes motivating people. They're going to push for the money and not for your health. Take matters into your own hands. Pay attention to your own health.
Right. I'll do that. I mean, I can run, I can jump, I can dance, I can sing. Well, I can't dance, nor can I sing. But what I can do is have the desire to have more kids while not having more kids, because I didn't tank my cholesterol because I took the statin. Later. If I keep talking, my wife's going to be upset. More upset.